Mackenzie, are we on live now?
Yes, we are.
Okay, we'll start the meeting then. I'd like to welcome you to the Town of Fort Erie Community Adjustment meeting of September 9th, 2021. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. I now call this meeting to order. First, I'd like to introduce you to the committee members and staff. So our staff tonight is Kara H., the Secretary Treasurer, who will be recording the minutes of tonight's meeting, and Mackenzie Cece, the meeting host, who's doing the back end technical duties. Tonight's following members are the following: Sam Pasha, Chris Nutt, and myself, Sam Strasol, will be chairing tonight's meeting. To those members of the public who may be participating electronically in the public meeting portion of this meeting tonight, you may wish to put your view on gallery view by clicking the top right corner from speaker view. I also ask you are mindful of background noises for the duration of the meeting. Please also note that participating members of the public will remain in the virtual waiting room via telephone or electronically until they are called upon during the public meeting. This is a statutory public meeting under the Planning Act for the purposes of considering both minor variance and consent applications. Members of the committee have been provided with all written comments received by agencies and the public prior to this meeting. Committee members are asked to mute their microphones until you're asked to speak. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak and vote by raising your hand. The purpose of this meeting is to obtain input from residents relative to the application. Those participating online via Zoom will be asked to raise their virtual hand when they wish to speak. On a computer, you can do so by clicking on participants in the bottom center of the screen and then by clicking raise hand. On a mobile device, you can tap more in the bottom right, then tapping raise hand. You'll then be brought into the meeting by staff. You can then unmute yourself and start your video by using the buttons on your screen. If you're participating by phone, you wish to raise your hand, press *9 and you will be unmuted by staff. Next, we'll hear from the applicant or agent, then from those in support or opposition to the application or to ask questions. We ask that each attendee keep their comments to under 10 minutes to allow all attendees the opportunity to speak. Applicants and attendees are advised that they are free to leave the webinar once a decision has been made on their application. Each application will provide in the following order. The Secretary Treasurer will summarize the purpose and effect of the application and any comments received. Second, the applicant will be called upon to speak and make further comments if they have any. Third, the committee members will ask questions of the applicant. Fourth, the public will be asked to speak one at a time to state their full name and address for the record any comments they may have towards the application. 5, the chair will close the application once all comments have been heard. 6, the committee members will make a decision on the application, whether they approve, refuse, or defer it, and state if any conditions apply. Please address your comments and questions directly to the chair. Each application will be heard in the order in which they appear on the agenda. The notice of decision will be provided to all applicants stating the outcome of the hearing and any conditions of approval if required. Please note that correspondence and comments received this evening are restricted to the matters of the Committee Adjustment in the Planning Act. In considering each application evening, the Committee of Adjustment will have due regard for the provisions of Section 45 and Section 53 Ontario Planning Act of 1990 as amended. A 20-day appeal period exists for each application heard this evening. Final appeal dates are noted on the notice of the decision and are available by requesting a copy in writing. I'll begin by asking committee members present if they have any conflicts of interest with respect of any of the applications we heard this evening. Sam?
I do not.
And Chris?
I do not have any conflicts.
I'll now ask the Secretary Treasurer, the notice of the meeting was probably given in accordance with the provisions of the Ontario Planning Act.
Yes, it was.
And have you received?
For the record, Chair, may I confirm that you also had no conflicts?
I had no conflicts.
Perfect, thank you.
Have you received any requests with adjournment or withdrawal respecting tonight's decision or application?
Yes, yes, we have. Since circulation, we have had 2 withdrawals. We've had a withdrawal for consent file B26, B27, and minor variance A55, which is for 3205 Poplar Avenue. We've also had a withdrawal for minor variance file A5321, which was for 178 Elmwood.
Okay. So for the record, if anybody's in the public that's here for those 2 applications, those have been, is it deferred or withdrawn?
Withdrawn.
Withdrawn. Okay, thank you. I'll now proceed with the first application tonight's agenda. I'll now call the first file. It's file B2521. The address is 2751 Nye Road. The applicant is PLW Plan Consulting, P. Lee White, and the owners Christina and Jesse Savage. Hey, Mr. White, how are you?
Doing very well, thank you.
Good. Are you ready to proceed with tonight's application?
Yes, and promise to keep it short and sweet.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask Kara to read the correspondence.
This consent application proposes the creation of a new residential lot described as Part 1 on the sketch for future residential dwelling. The retained parcel described in Part 2 contains a single detached dwelling municipally known as 2751 Nye Road. This proposal is associated with a zoning bylaw amendment. The new amendment was approved by council on July 19th, 2021 to facilitate the creation of a new residential building lot. The zoning amendment application implemented site-specific rural zoning. The amending zoning bylaw was approved by council on August 23rd and is currently in the appeal period. The appeal period will expire on September 22nd. Planning staff have no objection to the consent application subject to the following conditions. Final approval of the zoning bylaw, removal of the shed from Part 1, 5% cash in lieu of parkland dedication, that a reference plan be submitted to the town, as well as the final consent fee. Infrastructure has reviewed the application, and the consent should be conditional upon the following: an overall lot grading on Part 1, a 1.45 meter road widening with clear title, and a 4.5 meter by 4.5 meter daylighting triangle with clear title shall be granted to the town. The region requires an archaeological assessment be approved by the ministry and submitted to both the town and the region for approval. And a reminder that any building permits for demolition require a permit. There are no further comments, objections from staff, agency, or the public, and that concludes your report with 9 conditions.
Thank you, Kara. Mr. White, do you have any comments or questions related to the correspondence that Kara just read?
No, I don't welcome any questions. I think it's just important to note that the zoning has been passed by council and that not one member of the public has made any comment during the public open house or during the mandatory public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendment.
Do committee members have any questions?
I just, one general question would be that I just want to make sure that the applicant or the agent are okay with all set forth conditions that Kara read.
The applicant and property owner has expressed a desire to keep the shed with contingent upon applying for a building permit, which they do intend to do immediately, only because there's some sentimental value to it. The remnant parcel, Part 2, is owned by Christine Savage, and Jesse Savage is proposing to build a house on Part 1. And his father built the house and that shed and has some attachment to it and would like to keep it, but understand that if it's going to compromise our ability to obtain an approval, we would relocate it temporarily onto Part 2, and then when we apply for a building permit, move it back to Part 1 if necessary.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Chris, you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Mr. White, just one clarification. It says here that the appeal period will expire on September 22nd. So is it technically that's still on the table if anybody wanted to appeal for the application?
Technically, I would say yes, that is a possibility. However, given that not a single person has made a comment, they wouldn't have standing to do so, to file an LPAT appeal or something to that effect.
Okay, thank you. Mackenzie, do you have any questions on the, Mackenzie, do you see anyone in the audience? I don't see anybody in the attendees.
No, I'm just seeing the applicants at this time.
Okay, I'll ask this file to be closed, and I'll ask the members to express their views.
Okay. I will be voting in favor of the application before us.
Okay, Chris?
I'll be supporting this application as well.
Thank you, and I'll be supporting this application. The town, the region supports it, and the applicant on their behalf, agrees with all the conditions, so I'll put a motion on the floor.
I'd like to make a motion to approve file B2521 based on the written and oral comments received.
And do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Sam.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, the motion is carried. You'll receive a written notice of the committee's decision, so long no appeals received within the 20 days of this notice. Thanks for attending tonight.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Okay, the next application tonight is consent file B2821. The address is 4165 Rebstock Road. The applicant is Michael George, and the owners Michael and Cindy Atkins. Hello, how are you?
Not too bad yourself?
Yep, can you, obviously you're not Mr. George, so can you please state your name and then we'll have to ask you on record if you're ready to go with the application?
Yep, my name is Shelby. I am one of the law clerks here and I am ready to go with the application, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask Kara to read the correspondence.
This consent application has been submitted for the creation of a new residential lot and the partial discharge of mortgage. The retained lot on part 2 of the Severn sketch has an existing 2-story dwelling and will continue its residential use. The new lot is proposed for future residential development. This proposal for consent was previously approved in 2014 as file B03-2014. However, it was not registered in title with the required statutory limits, causing the lot creation to lapse. Creation of a residential lot in the urban area demonstrates an efficient use of land and resources in accordance with the provincial policy statement and regional and town official plans, and is considered good planning. As per the town's official plan, residential intensification, infill development, and redevelopment are encouraged in urban areas that have sufficient existing or planned infrastructure. Planning staff have no objection to this consent application, subject to the following conditions: that the applicant submit a reference plan to the town for approval, that payment of the final consent certificate fee is submitted to the town as well. Infrastructure has reviewed. The only condition they have is that a 4.5 by 4.5 meter daylighting triangle is applied to the reference plan. There are no further comments or objections from staff, agencies, or the public. And this concludes your report with the 3 conditions noted.
Thank you, Kara. Shelby, did you want to comment or have any questions based on the correspondence that Kara read from all the agencies?
No, I don't believe I have any additional questions or comments on this. It's pretty well summed up in the report provided by the agencies.
Okay, thank you. Chris, do you have any questions?
I do not have any questions.
Sam?
No, I concur with the agent that this is pretty straightforward.
And I have no questions. Mackenzie, I don't see anybody in the participants or attendees, so I'll ask this file to be closed and I'll ask the committee members to express their views. Chris?
I'll be supporting this application as it was prior approved in 2014.
Thanks. Sam?
I too will be supporting the application before us.
And I'll be supporting the application. Everything was approved back then. This is just going forward, straightforward with this application. I'll be approving this application. Let's put the motion on the floor.
Sure. I'll motion that file B28/21 be considered with all written and oral submissions and finds that subject to the conditions that Kara had read earlier, this application meets the Planning Act criteria.
And Sam, a seconder?
Second the motion.
All in favor? Okay, the motion is carried, Shelby. There'll be a 20-day appeal period exists for each, after 20 days of existing, if there's no appeals, your application will be approved. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
Take care. Okay, the next application is consent file B2921. The address is 3172 Jewel Avenue. The applicant is Dan Carlesso and the owner DR Construction. Hey, Danny, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Are you ready to proceed with tonight's application?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll ask Kara to read the correspondence.
This consent application proposes the creation of a new lot for future residential development. The retained lot has an existing two-story dwelling and an attached carport and will continue its residential use. The new lot is proposed for future residential development. The detached garage, metal shed, and the attached carport that encroach onto Part 2 are proposed to be removed. Staff note that the new lot will not be subject to infill lot regulations at this time, and that the lot has been cleared of trees. Staff note that demolition permits may be required for the removal of the existing structures on the property, and removal of these structures also includes the removal of the associated foundation and any plumbing or electrical conditions. Planning staff have no objection to this consent application, subject to the following conditions: that the detached garage and metal shed are removed, that the carport on Part 1 that encroaches onto Part 2 is removed, that the encroaching portion of the driveway is removed, that 5% of cash and no parkland dedication be paid to the town, that a reference plan is submitted to the town, and that the final consent fee is submitted to the town as well. Infrastructure have reviewed and can agree to the consent based on the following conditions: that a tree payment of $500 be made to the town, that the overall lock rating for Part 2 be submitted for approval by the town, and that the owner pay to the town $950 for the installation of a street light on Jewel Avenue. A reminder that building permits should be submitted for any demolition, and there's no further comments or objections received from staff, agencies, or the public at the time. And that concludes with your conditions.
Thanks, Kara. Dan, do you have any questions or comments based on the correspondence that Kara just read?
No.
Okay. Sam, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, it's pretty straightforward from what I've read and just heard.
Chris?
I have no questions, Sam.
And I have none. I don't see anybody in the audience. So I'll ask this file to be closed unless committee members express their views. Sam?
Yeah, I'll would be certainly supporting Mr. Carlos's application, as there's nothing on here that seems to be of great concern.
Chris?
I'll be supporting this application as well. Straightforward lot creation. So not much to it.
And I'll be supporting the application based on what my colleague said, and that the town also supports it. So I'll put the motion on the floor.
I'd like to make a motion to approve file B2921FE based on the written and oral comments received.
Did you
I'll
have a
second that. Yeah, I'll second that, Sam.
All in favor? Dan, your application has been approved. You'll see written notice of the committee decision. The decision becomes final so long no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. Thanks for attending tonight.
Okay, thanks. Have a good night.
You too. Sorry, I was on the unmute button, I guess. The last application is 5421 354 Cherry Hill Boulevard South. The applicant is Wayne Bukowski and the owner is Wayne and April Bukowski. Hi, Wayne, how are you?
I am fine there.
Did I pronounce your name right, the last name?
That's close enough. Buchkowski is close enough.
Okay, thanks. And are you ready to proceed with tonight's application?
Yes, I am.
I'll ask Kara to read the correspondence, and if you have any questions or comments, you can address it through the committee, and we'll go from there. Thank you so much.
Purpose and effect of this application is to request a decrease to the rear yard setback to permit the construction of a proposed one-story addition to the existing dwelling. The applicant has also applied for a minor variance to recognize the existing front yard setback. However, upon staff's review of the proposal, it's determined that the variance is not required. The applicant can withdraw the request for this variance. The Ontario Planning Act provides that a minor variance must meet the following 4 tests. The minor variance is that the variance is minor in nature, and staff support that. That the proposed variance is desirable and appropriate use for the development and land of the buildings. Staff support that it is in the R1 zone. That the proposal meets the general intent of the zoning bylaw. Staff do agree that it meets the intent of the zoning bylaw and that it meets the intent of the official plan. Planning, based on the above comments that were circulated to the applicant and the committee, planning staff support the requested variance. In the opinion of staff, the requested variance to the front yard setback is not required. No further comments or objections were received from staff or agencies, and 1 letter of support was received from an abutting neighbor. And that concludes.
Thank you. Wayne, do you have any comments or questions with any of the correspondence that Kara just read?
None at this time.
Okay, thank you. Chris, do you have any questions for the applicant?
No, I do not.
Sam, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
And I have none. There's nobody in the audience that's left, so I'll ask that this file to be closed. I'll ask committee members to express their views. Chris?
I'll be supporting this application. Good to see that the front yard setback is not required. It will be in alignment with the rest of the neighborhood. Also, I'll be supporting it because we've had some feedback from the public that is also supportive of this application. It meets the 4 tests and town staff supports it, so.
Thanks, Chris. Sam?
Chris said it all. I'll support it as well.
I'll concur what Chris just summarized for myself, so I'll be supporting the application. If Chris wants to put the motion on the floor. Oh,
Through you,
sorry.
Mr. Chair, can I just confirm, are we would Mr. Bukowski like to withdraw the front yard setback, or does he want to keep it as noted? And that's kind of up to the committee as well, so.
Well, it's been approved, hasn't it? So it's just,
Yeah.
let's keep it on file.
Okay.
That's
All right, we're keeping both. Okay, perfect. All right, go ahead with your motions.
Okay, the Committee of Adjustment considered the written and oral comments received with regards to this report and agrees that the minor variance report analysis and the recommendation that this application meets the 4 tests of planning for a minor variance for file A54/21FE for 354 Cherry Hill Boulevard South.
And do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
All in favor? Okay, the motion is carried. Wayne, you received written notice of the committee decision. Decision becomes final so long no appeals are received within 20 days of the notice. Thanks for attending tonight. Take care and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
Okay, may I ask for a motion of the committee to process the signed decisions concurred by the majority of members electronically?
I will, go ahead, Sam, I'll
Go
second
ahead,
that.
go ahead, go ahead. I was just gonna say, I make a motion to do so, just like Kara talked about.
And do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Is there any other business?
No other business.
No other business. Okay, so the next hearing dates are September 23rd and October 21st. If there's no further business, the meeting's adjourned at 6:25 PM. Thanks for everyone attending.